This
We're
was his...
back. I'm speaking with Brian Gould, CEO of Aspen Leaf Energy, and Catherine Swift, president of the Concerned Manufacturers and Businesses of Canada. Catherine, if we had to go to break, we're talking about C-5. Pick up your thoughts.
Yeah, well, this bill, in essence, there's actually two parts of it. I think it should be divided into the two parts. One deals with interprovincial trade barriers, so that's fine. Yeah, let's deal with that. But then, and this is always the point of these bills when they combine a bunch of different subjects, the other part basically gives dictatorial powers to the Prime Minister, and Dominic LeBlanc is actually the minister that's responsible. If you look at his history, it hasn't been very stellar. He was responsible, for example, of giving a family member a very valuable clam license on the East Coast. He put his sister-in-law in temporarily before the outcry became too much as an interim ethics commissioner. This guy is not trustworthy. And if you have something as absolutely omnipotent as this piece of legislation, you got to really trust the people that are making the decisions. Highly subjective. We heard Carney talk about the conditions. We want it to be good for the economy. Really? You don't want it to be bad for the economy? I mean, they're ludicrous. They're ludicrous and so generalized and so subjective. Who decides what's going to be good for the economy? And in this case, we know who decides. It's these guys, many of whom have been in power for ages and wrecked the joint in Canada. So I have no confidence whatsoever that they're going to be able to pull this off. I think it's disgraceful they're trying to jam it into such a short. I mean, this was clearly a game plan from the get-go. We had the other bill about security issues and border issues that gives them the right to open our mail, to do all kinds of intrusive things. So Carney has a game plan here. Let's have all this, I'm the king of the castle bill, and we, the taxpayers, are the dirty rascals in this. And we're going to pass it so fast, nobody will even notice. And then, folks, you're in big trouble. And that's where I'm afraid we are.
Carney does have some fans. One in particular, the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, who said he was like Santa Claus. Let's listen to what Doug Ford had to say about Mark Carney, and I'd love to get your thoughts on the other side.
I described him today as Santa Claus. He's coming, and his sled was full of all sorts of stuff. Now he's taking off back to the North Pole. He's going to sort it out, and then he's going to call us. So,
Brian, what are your thoughts on what Doug Ford had to say about Mark Carney?
Well, let's differentiate the fantasy world from the real world. So in the fantasy world, you know, Santa and the elves make all the gifts at the North Pole, and they hand it out to kids. But in the real world, taxpayers pay for all this, and you pay for all of the goodies and the handouts in Santa's bag, either directly through your taxes or indirectly through higher prices in the goods and services that you consume. I continue to be a strong advocate for free market economies. Let businesses and entrepreneurs do business, and governments should stick to governing, making things safe for us, building hospitals and schools and such. It causes me great consternation that we're moving towards a central planning model where big government will decide winners and losers. It's subject to all kinds of crony capitalism, inefficient uses of capital, and then to boot, you know, the conditions are so generalized that it just feeds on fertile ground for corruption and bad decision making. And any reference to Santa Claus, I don't live in Ontario. Thankfully, I live in Alberta. But I would say to your Premier, Santa, who's paying for those gifts?
Well, you are living in Alberta, and Danielle Smith has furiously defended the resource sector for not only Alberta, but for all of Canada. In your opinion, how has she been doing as the Premier in navigating the relationship with the Prime Minister?
So I think the Premier is doing a spectacular job. I wholeheartedly endorse her libertarian view to life, her support for free market economies. I think she's been absolutely brilliant in her approach to dealing with the U.S. and building support for our resource sector there. And at least she has the Prime Minister at the table discussing building infrastructure, and we'll see how far she's able to go. But I like that she's standing up, not just for the province of Alberta or for Western Canada, but for all the provinces, and trying to keep the federal government in its lane and staying out of the jurisdiction of the provinces. So I would give our premier full marks.
Well, good stuff. We're going to have to go to break, and there'll be more when we're back on Canadian Innovators.